If you grew up in the 90s watching the senseless, muscle-fueled, testosterone-dripping action movies with overgrown men in a main role with a very thick accent, there is not a lot of watches that get cooler than this.
0, 1. Let's get started.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Seiko Arnie, the very first diver combining analog watch with a digital screen, appeared first in 1982, before reappearing again 37 years later in 2019. Not only it was a peak of technology back then, but it was bold, big, odd. So no wonder it really got into attention of the biggest action star of that time, maybe all time, Conan the Barbarian, the kindergarten cop, the Terminator himself. And it wasn't a product placement, it was his watch. He wore it independently on each other in a couple of movies, and he was seen wearing it elsewhere. I guess you can tell I'm a fan. On paper, you wouldn't say it's a watch that would immediately draw almost cult-like following fans. It is an oversized analog driver with oddly placed tiny digital screen, hardlex crystal, and protruding grounds or pushers on the other side where you would normally expect them. But I guess just like movies, some just become classic despite the prediction. Maybe even more so with time. The watch arrives at pretty standard box with like 0 surprises. No complaints, no excitement. It comes, however, on easily one of the best rubber straps I got my hands on, hands down. It's soft, yet it feels rugged. It's comfortable, signed with Seiko Kagenawa Wave at the end. It's got this structure from underneath that helps your skin breathe. It is all great, with one tiny little grape. It's a dirt magnet. Cat hair, dust, whatever the hell it finds. But hey, for all the other advantages, it's pretty good price to pay. I mentioned once that there are watches that you can easily recognize just by the shape of its case from across the room. This must be one of them. I mean, duh. It's impossible to mistake it for something else. It is an icon. And then Seiko, for whatever reason, after a couple of years decided to modernize it and introduce newer model that I can only imagine came to life like this. Yeah, if you think it's ugly, you're not alone. I would rather introduce it as a whole separate line, not really messing with the iconic design of the Arnie. But let's get back to it. Seiko stayed fairly faithful to the original, and that is a good thing. It is slightly larger in all dimensions. The case is covered with this plastic, matte black shroud that totally comes from tuna, with its unmistakable shape with cutouts allowing for bezel operation. There are these screws that somewhat balancing the pushers or crowns. And it is a big thing, G-Shock big. I measured 47.6mm in diameter, 14.5 thick, 22mm lug width, but the strap has got actually 24mm at the lug opening, tapering down to 20, and 51mm lug to lug. That sounds like a lot. That would put a lot of people off. But there is this thing, Seiko's got a way of making big watches wear smaller. This doesn't exactly wear small, but it wears really good. It doesn't really feel oversized once you put it on wrist. For your reference, I got 7-inch wrist, and I think it looks absolutely alright. And it feels right, partly because of the weight, 114 grams on the supplied rubber strap. Partly because the dial actually only measures 32mm, so it doesn't visually look like a monster. And partly because these sticking out lugs are actually really short. All high polish, by the way. I mean, it just works even if you don't have Mr. Olympia's wrist size. If anything, I would say it wears very similar to Citizen ProMaster Eco Drive. The crowns are big, all 3 of them are the same size. With great action, threading is smooth, clicks are pronounced, not much to complain about here again. Maybe except for the placement, but more on that later. The Caseback though? Look, unlike some of my colleagues, I actually think the Caseback is a place where company can go crazy and give you something interesting, just like on my foreteller Cambrian. And Seiko is capable of making really nice casebacks with their Kagenawa Wave. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't do it here. I mean, this is supposed to be like super rough two-leg watch, right? For action heroes. Man, I would really like to be in the room when Seiko makes decisions. It's all high polish, with this tiny Kagenawa Wave in the middle and like brief specs around saying made in China. I mean, dude, it really feels like an afterthought here. It almost feels fake, like a copy of Seiko. Not a fan. The bezel is 120 click, as everyone would expect, unidirectional diver's bezel, with matte black aluminum insert. The right bezel insert. The action, for someone who's not familiar with Seiko divers, is a bit difficult to describe. It's like soft, almost mushy. You hear the clicks, but you almost don't feel them, almost like it was a friction-based bezel. But yet it feels really good quality. It works. And in here you can only operate it with the cutouts in the shroud. It's kinda cool, somewhat limiting, but I totally get it. And the dial, oh boy, that is a treat. A retro-futuristic, robotic action hero dial. Matte grey dial, with all the elements printed. The indices are a mixture of all the shapes Seiko could probably think of. Circles on hours, then the longer pill-like ones at 3, 6 and 9, and the triangle at 12. Now if you have OCD, I'm sorry. This could drive you a bit nuts. To accommodate for a tiny screen on the top, the indices at the top are a little bit smushed closer together. So the gap between the indices around 12 is not the same like the others. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. They are all filled with Seiko's LumiBright. Great loom, solid 7 out of 10. It never really disappoints. It stays readable throughout the night. Plus, the Seiko Arnie features a backlight. If the shit gets real. I mean, if the dark gets really real. Seiko logo at 12. Prospex X logo that I still don't like on the dial as much as I would like it on the crown. Solar in capital letters for some reason. I mean, okay. That didn't need to be there, Seiko. And the only splash of colors, the dark orange Divers 200 meters. Yes, Divers. The ISO certified diver. The handset is absolutely spot on for this type of watch. One could say they are a bit short, but that is for them not to obscure the display, so I'm fine with that. Very visibly rough brushed and very easy to read. Again, filled with loom. Second hand is in my books as cool as it gets. White with lollipop counterbalance. I was about to say it's so lovely, but that is definitely not the right term to use for a watch that was in Predator, so it's functional. The screen, that is the retro cherry on top. It screams 80s. It allows you to, in combination with all the crowns, control a set of features that some are great and I think generally useful, and some, mainly due to button placement and the fact that they are screwed down, let's just say I don't see myself using them that much. The movement is solar, as you know, from the capital letters printed right on the dial, with end-of-life indication and quite a few features. The first one is a time mode mirroring the time on the analog dial. I mean, why? But okay. There is a date, which is where I keep it all the time pretty much. Second time zone, should you take Mr. Arnie on vacation, that is great. And then stopwatch and an alarm. Okay, I'm a bit paranoid. But if the watch has a screw down pushers and crowns, I like to keep them screwed down, you know. But due to the iconic placement, unscrewing them on the wrist, unless you're southpaw, it's a pain. So I guess the idea is to keep them unscrewed and only screw them down if you go to the water. Yeah, that would drive me crazy. So I would keep them screwed down and not use them. Most probably only use the second time zone when I do travel. How to sum it up? Not to be affectionate because it's a watch of my favorite action hero, but there have to be some negatives. It is a review after all. I would say setting up the watch and getting used to the control overall just takes some time. I don't honestly see the point of having a traditional screw down crown when it doesn't really work as a crown at all. I mean, when you turn it, you feel the little click in it that is basically working as a button. So you might very well just have a button. But alright, on the other hand, I gotta say, once you get your hand around it, operating a watch kind of feels like magic, especially when you see the hands moving independently on each other. I already mentioned the uninspiring Caseback. Then there is the question of alignment issues. There is a slight misalignment on this one, like the bezel is tilted slightly to the right, but not enough to bother me. But on other units it can be worse. It is a Seiko after all. And then there is the question, of course, of the value for money. The price on the Seiko website is 500 euros at the time of making this video. The cheapest new example I could find here in Spain was 425 euros. That is still a chunk of money. I mean, occasionally you find them even cheaper, but still it is a chunk of money. And you still only get the Hardlex crystal, unsigned crown, and potential misaligned watch. Typical Seiko stuff. I think by this point we kind of got used to this with Seiko. We're not buying Seiko because it's a great value for money anymore, but because it is a Seiko. And this one in particular, it is a goddamn icon. I mean, ISO certified, Mr. Olympia certified, goddamn icon. With all its quirkiness and weird button placement, you get something that will be forever classic. That is something you cannot say about a lot of better valued watches. There is a different value with Seiko. And if you manage to find one for a good price, I can almost guarantee you won't be disappointed. Okay, as always guys, this is it. If you like the videos, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, I thank you for watching this far. Please let me know in the comments if you have experience with Arnie. And until next time, this is Watch. My name is Karel. Cheers.